Don't eat expensive steaks because the electric bill is high. You live off my pension, so don't complain. You're a useless wife who can't even save money, so just shut up. Gary belittled his wife Helen, my mother-in-law, lecturing her every day. Knowing that such a kind and gentle person like Helen was being insulted like this, I couldn't stay silent. Helen, education. Let's educate him, educate. Huh? The plan to reform Gary, led by Helen and her daughter-in-law Nancy, had just begun. I'm Nancy, 32 years old. I work in accounting at a company. I got married about 6 months ago and now live near my husband's parents' house. It's less than a 5-minute walk away. Living close to the in-laws must be tough. I often hear people say that, but I find it helpful. As a dual-income couple, we are both busy, and at the end of the month, we don't have the time or energy to cook dinner when we get home. Knowing this, it must be hard for you. During your busy periods, just let me know, and I'll cook for you. You can stop by our place and have dinner before going home. Helen said. Initially, I declined, thinking it was too much to ask, but Helen continued. It's okay, we can eat first without waiting for you. Or I can put it in a container and bring it to you. She said this without making it seem like a burden. I loved and respected her for her gentle and kind personality. Her cooking was so delicious that, after being invited for weekend dinners, we started having dinner together almost every week. Good evening, thanks for having us. Welcome. Helen, let me help carry that. Wow, tonight's dinner looks delicious. Thank you, Nancy. You always say such nice things. But it really is delicious. I end up eating too much. I'm happy that both you and Matthew eat a lot. Helen smiled joyfully. Not only Helen, but Gary also doted on me. Yes, he doted on me, but... Hey, we're short one plate. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get it right away. And the soy sauce isn't out. You're so slow. I'll bring it right away. Honestly, after so many years of being a housewife, you're still slow. Your cooking hasn't improved either. Nancy works and earns money, she's impressive. Oh, no, I'm not as good at housework or cooking as you. You don't have to be so considerate to slowpoke. Oh, here we go again. I'm starting to dislike Gary more and more each time I see him. He's not a bad person, but his way of talking to Helen is terrible. At first, I didn't mind so much. Considering their generation, it was normal for her to handle all the housework. But not only does Gary not thank her, he always puts her down. Helen, this salad is delicious. Thank you. Oh, Nancy, you don't have to be nice to someone like her. It really is delicious. Gary, you must be happy to eat such great food every day. You're kind. But her cooking is plain and not very good. That's not true. It's full of vegetables and nutritious, which makes me happy. It's rare for someone to praise such bad cooking. Bad cooking? That's impossible. Yet, neither Helen nor Matthew said anything. Are they just used to it? Hey Matthew, don't you think Gary is a bit too harsh on Helen? It's really unpleasant to listen to. After we got home, I brought it up to Matthew. Huh? What did Dad do? Are you seriously not noticing? He talks down to Helen so much. Oh, that. He's always been like that, don't worry about it. That's just how they communicate. It's like Dad's twisted way of showing affection or something. Why does he need to twist it like that? Helen must be hurt every time he talks to her that way. Oh come on, it's been like this forever. Mom doesn't seem to mind. Do you really think so? If you talked to me like that, I'd be so upset. If it happened every day, I'd be considering a divorce. What? A divorce? You don't need to panic. Just listen to what Gary says sometimes. It's really awful. All right, I'll pay more attention. But I don't think Dad means any harm. I guess it's okay now. I wonder if this is a difference in how men and women perceive things. Even if there's no bad intention, it doesn't mean you can say whatever you want, even to family. Maybe I should talk to Helen. One day, when Gary was out golfing, I invited Helen to go shopping. We browsed through clothes and accessories at the department store and had a delicious lunch. Nancy, let me pay for this. No, today it's my treat. Consider it a thank you for all the times you've treated me. But I smiled and insisted, then took her to our favorite cafe. This tart is so good. I can't remember the last time I enjoyed myself like this. Thank you for today. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. We should have these girls' days more often. Yes, but if I spend money on myself, Gary gets angry. Just as I was thinking about how to bring it up, Gary's name came up, and I seized the moment. Helen, there's something I wanted to talk to you about. What is it? I hope this doesn't offend you. I told her honestly how I felt about Gary's comments, how I didn't like how he talked down to her, and that I wanted to help if it was bothering her. It's not that I dislike him. But if this keeps up, I might start to. I'm sorry. Oh. I'm sorry that this is bothering you. He's always been awkward and dull in conversation. Maybe making jokes at my expense is the only way he knows how to be funny. Not that it's funny. Helen gave a bitter smile. Helen, are you really okay with it? I've tried not to let it bother me, but ever since he retired, he's home all the time. Every day it's the same, and it's been getting to me lately. That's completely understandable. She had been hurt after all. I nodded, feeling relieved that she had opened up to me. He leaves the TV and lights on all the time, but he's always on me about saving money. He's constantly criticizing me for being slow. As Helen began to pour out everything she had been holding in, I nodded along, trying not to interrupt. I feel so much better after talking to you. I haven't been able to tell anyone until now. You can talk to me anytime. Thank you, Nancy. And then it was another weekend. As we brought a cake to the in-laws' house, we heard raised voices. It was unusual. Matthew and I exchanged glances and walked into the living room. I'm not saying you can't eat steak. I'm saying we don't need such an expensive cut. With prices and electric bills going up, you need to cooperate a bit more. You said not to eat expensive steak because the electricity bill is high? You live off my pension, so stop complaining. If you can't save money, that's your fault. A wife who can't even save money should just be quiet. A useless wife? I was stunned. Dad, you can't talk like that, Matthew said while I was quietly seething. How could he say such a horrible thing to Helen, who was such a good wife and mother? Matthew asked what happened, and it turned out that last night Gary suddenly said, I feel like eating steak. He ordered an expensive steak delivery without asking. And only for himself. Who knew you could get premium steak delivered? But that's not the point. Helen only asked for cooperation if saving money was important. When we walked in, Gary quickly ended the conversation and tried to brush it off, but Helen gave me a weak smile when our eyes met. What can I do? A few days later, I visited Helen while Gary was out. Welcome, Nancy. Helen, I've decided. What? Decided what? Education. We need to educate Gary. What? The next weekend, as usual, we gathered for dinner at the in-laws' house. This meal looks plain and boring, Gary complained as he sat down. Let's eat. Mom, this eggplant is delicious. The garlic is really nice. It's refreshing, isn't it? Matthew, you do love garlic. This isn't tasty at all. Helen, this chicken is so tender and delicious. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like it. The bones make it hard to eat. Don't serve this. Remove the bones. No. What? Do it yourself. What? It's your fault for serving something so hard to eat. Then don't eat it. What? I'm saying you don't have to eat it if you don't like my cooking. What's with the sudden change? Gary, who had never been talked back to, was taken aback. Helen looked straight at Gary with determination. All you do is complain, saying it's bad or boring. What? Do you think you can say anything to me and it won't hurt? That I won't be affected by your harsh words? No, I didn't mean it like that. You're being dramatic. Stop it in front of Matthew and Nancy. Gary, pressured by Helen's unwavering gaze, started to panic. No, I won't stop. You never listen to me when we're alone. What? From now on, I'll say no when I don't like something. If you keep belittling me, I won't cook for you anymore. Don't be ridiculous. I'm your husband, the head of this house. Who do you think supports you? Dad, enough. What? Divorces often start from things like this. What? Mom, I'm sorry. I never noticed until Nancy pointed it out. Matthew, why are you talking like this? I've supported you all this time. It's only natural to respect the head of the family. What Helen does is worth nothing. Is that really true? What? I stood up. What if Helen stopped doing all the housework? No meals, trash overflowing, no laundry or cleaning. Nancy. Then let's outsource it. Housekeepers or housework services. I've researched and calculated costs with some major companies. Researched? Calculated? Gary looked puzzled. The plan where you can get everything done, including shopping, cooking, cleaning, and laundry, costs about $90 for 2 hours. With a $10 transportation fee, the total is $100. This is the cost for 2 hours once a week. If they come every week, it amounts to about $400 a month. But is 2 hours a week enough? You eat 3 meals a day, right? Even if you ask for meal prep, it's impossible to make enough for a whole week. Helen cleans every day, so whenever you come, everything is spotless. To maintain this level, you'll need even more money. Nancy? Does Gary help with cleaning regularly? Where, the bathroom? The toilet? No, I don't clean anywhere. So, you don't do it at all? No. What about laundry? Hanging, taking it down, folding, and putting it away. Do you help with any of that? Sheets are hard, so of course, Gary is hanging them, right? I handle all the sheets. He has never done it, not even once. What? Matthew and I exaggeratedly expressed our surprise in unison. Helen doesn't have weekends off or summer vacations. Every single day, even if it's $100 for 2 hours, she's doing the equivalent of a $3,000 monthly job. $3,000. In reality, Helen's work isn't just 2 hours. Gary, have you ever seen Helen lounging on the couch or lazing around? That. Have you? No. I nodded. According to a simulator that calculates the annual salary of a housewife, the average annual income for housework is about $470,000. It is said to increase even more during periods of childcare. What? While Gary was stunned, Helen smiled at me. Nancy, you really know your numbers. Sorry for being so forward. You're grilling him like in a movie. Matthew, did you say something? No, nothing. Helen turned to Gary. Gary. Yes. Surrounded by his wife and son, Gary was no longer his usual self. Nancy is just explaining things clearly for me. It's not like we're asking you to pay. Oh. I appreciate that you work hard, and thanks to you, the kids and I have been able to live well. I've considered childcare and housework to be my job. That's right, exactly. I've supported you all. Even while breaking into a cold sweat, Gary couldn't let that go. But if you keep criticizing me every day without a single thank you or the food is delicious, I can't do this anymore. The kids have already grown up, and there's no need to suppress my feelings and stay with you any longer. What? So, I'm done with enduring. Starting tomorrow, you will do the housework. I'll instruct you. What? You instructing me? If you don't like it, I won't do anything. Try doing it all by yourself. What? Dad, did you forget everything we just discussed? Helen, it's totally fine if you come to stay with us for a while. Oh, that sounds fun. Wait! Realizing he was outnumbered 3-1, Gary raised his voice in panic. Okay, I get it. Helen and I exchanged glances and nodded. From the next day, Gary started learning housework from Helen. First, Helen, who was told to save money by Gary, said, "Then show me how you do it," and sent him shopping for groceries alone. He ended up spending $70 on the first trip. Moreover, it was mostly unnecessary treats, with few vegetables and meat and no fish at all. What are you going to make with this? Try it. Even though Helen asked, Gary, who had never cooked before, was just flustered. Holding a knife, he cut his fingers, wasted ingredients, and made a mess while Helen guided him. In the end, Helen managed to finish the cooking with ingenuity, but it only lasted for 2 days. You spent $70 for 2 days. And? You told me to cut down our $300 monthly grocery budget even more? Meanwhile, you ordered an expensive steak for yourself. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Gary was apologizing profusely. I never realized how hard grocery shopping is. I understand now how well you managed to save money. Gary used to order delivery without thinking, dine out after golf, and put expensive meat in the cart whenever he went shopping with Helen. Whenever Helen pointed it out even a little, "It's your fault for not being able to save money. This is why you're a useless wife," he would hurl unreasonable words at her. But after experiencing grocery shopping and cooking himself, he understood how tough managing the food budget was. He stopped telling her to save money. Instead, "This is delicious. Thank you for the meal." He started saying these things properly. It's something that should be obvious, but even that he wasn't doing before. However, changing years of behavior overnight is hard. Sometimes, there aren't many dishes today. Or, today's dinner looks plain. He would say these things. Helen would promptly respond, "If you have complaints, you don't have to eat." And he would, No. It looks delicious today too." Quickly say. Learning physical tasks was quick for him. On sunny days, he would hang sheets, clean the bathroom, and pull weeds in the yard. Those became Gary's jobs. Helen would send daily text reports to me and Matthew. On weekends, we would visit to see the changes in Gary. Soon, Christmas arrived, and Brenda's family came to visit from New Orleans. Nancy, long time no see. It's been a while, Brenda. Matthew's sister Brenda is close in age to me, so we get along well. Actually, before talking to Helen, I had also consulted Brenda over the phone. What do you think? There's a generational gap, and if Helen really doesn't mind, it might just be meddling to badmouth Gary. I think Mom minds too. She's told me. Even though she doesn't care about minor complaints, Gary's way of speaking has been getting worse each year. One of the reasons I don't visit often is because I don't like that side of Gary. Really? Of course, the high cost of flights is also a reason. Sorry, even though Matthew's wife Nancy is going through a tough time. No, it's okay. I'll talk to Helen then. Thanks. Call me if you need anything. Okay. And when I reported that Gary's transformation plan had started, she clapped her hands in joy over the phone. Brenda, how have you been? Gary said, lining up coffee in front of Brenda and her husband. Dad, long time no see. What? Did you make this coffee? Yes. Helen is cutting fruit now, so why don't you sit down? Oh, give me your large bags. I'll take them to the next room. Thank you. Who is this? Brenda and her husband were surprised. Matthew and I looked at each other and laughed. Brenda quietly came to me and whispered, Amazing. He used to just sit around when we visited. His expressions and way of speaking have softened. Right? That day's dinner was enjoyable. Helen's cooking tasted even better than usual. Oh, please try this too. It's not as good as Helen's, but since we always get treated to delicious meals, we brought a few dishes. I helped too. Thank you. Wow, they look delicious. Oh, impressive. Thanks. Yes, Nancy's cooking is tasty too. Glad you like it. This is really delicious. Nancy, you're amazing for managing both work and cooking so well. Helen used to be, oh, never mind. What do you mean by used to be? Were you about to say something unnecessary again? Sorry. Don't apologize when you haven't done anything wrong. Sorry. Dad is so weird. Everyone started laughing along with Brenda. Since then, Gary has completely stopped making derogatory remarks about Helen. Helen, on the other hand, has become more assertive in expressing her feelings. Gary, who used to have a sharp tongue, occasionally slips up but quickly catches himself or apologizes, so things have been peacefully settled. The power dynamics have completely reversed. But then again, Helen was always a kind person. She knows when to put her foot down, but she still respects Gary and never speaks harshly even when she's angry. Gary, who has started doing more around the house and moving a lot, has lost some weight and looks healthier than when he was always bossing around, and their relationship seems to have improved. And most importantly, I was happy to see Helen's genuine smile increasing. Helen and I continue to occasionally go shopping or have coffee together. Just as Nancy said, it was a good idea to have him do all the housework once. The best way to deal with complainers is to make them do it themselves. That's true for everything. You can't really understand without experiencing it firsthand. Exactly. But I have to be careful because Gary tends to revert back if I let my guard down. I'm hoping he'll learn how to fillet fish next. Oh, that sounds great. Thank you, Nancy. If you ever need anything or have any complaints about Matthew, feel free to tell me. Actually, Helen, I have something important to tell you today. What? Helen's face turned serious, thinking it was bad news. What is it? Did something happen? Well, we found out that we're expecting a baby. Oh, what? A baby? Helen looked up. Yes, we just found out. I think we might need a lot of help from now on, so please take care of us. Oh, really? Congratulations! I'm so happy for you, truly. Seeing Helen's eyes well up with tears, I almost started crying too. Of course, let me know if there's anything I can do to help. This means Gary will have to step up even more. If he goes back to his old ways, I'll kick him out, so don't worry. Helen said this firmly, and we smiled at each other. Paris, who neither marries nor has children, is like roadside weeds or empty cans, in other words, garbage. Useless moochers belong in the trash can. My brother Stanley's wife, Regina, said without hesitation. I was stunned, and even my mother, who I take care of. We don't need a daughter like you. Get out. Chimed in coldly. All right then, it seems they can't see past the immediate moment and understand what it will be like after I leave. So, I will take them up on their word and leave. Prepare yourselves. My name is Paris. I'm a 40-year-old office worker. At this age, most people would think I would be married with grown-up children. But fate had other plans for me, and I'm still single without children. In fact, I can't have children. When I was younger, I had health issues that led to this situation. But I'm grateful to be alive. However, those around me have no way of knowing my circumstances. Being single and childless at my age, people often think there must be something wrong with me. Though the rate of lifelong singleness is rising, it's curious how few people understand that. When there's talk of marriages or childbirths at work, I'm often met with awkward sympathy that leaves me exhausted. I don't mind at all, really. Other people's good news doesn't make me feel bad. I've mostly given up by now, but the cautious reactions of those around me are still hard to get used to. With that said, I still haven't given up on marriage. No matter the age, I still want to fall in love and, if fate allows, get married. Although right now, I enjoy my work more than romance, so the chances of marriage are slim. My job is rewarding and interesting, and I have no intention of quitting. But lately, my private life has been so busy that it's been affecting my work. The reason is that I'm currently caring for my mother. She used to live alone, but after Dad passed away, she fell and hurt her leg. While she can still walk, she needs a cane and help to avoid falling even when going to the bathroom. She can't handle grocery shopping, meals, or cleaning anymore. I have a brother, Stanley, but he's married with children and can't take care of her. So, without other options, I moved back home to care for Mom. It's been 2 years since I moved back, and it's been tough, affecting my work efficiency. I can't work overtime. Normally it's not a big deal, but during busy periods, overtime is essential to finish tasks. I have to rush through unfinished work, race to the grocery store, then dash home to prepare dinner. I help Mom with her bath and meals, clean up after dinner, and then do the laundry and cleaning. Before bed, I massage Mom's feet. Despite my devoted care, Mom says, it's only natural for a daughter. Repay the debt of raising you properly. She doesn't appreciate my efforts. Sure, I owe her for raising me, but a word of thanks would be nice. As a caregiver, that would change my motivation completely. But Mom only thinks it's natural and never thanks me. Instead, I face daily scoldings. At work, thinking about Mom, I glanced at the clock on the wall, almost time to leave. What should I do for dinner tonight? If I were alone, I could eat out or order pizza. But Mom insists on everything being homemade and refuses to eat out. The thought of having to cook, something I'm not particularly good at, after a long day at work gives me headache. Hiring a housekeeper isn't an option either since Mom immediately rejected the idea, saying, "I don't want strangers in my house." As I pondered tonight's menu, "Paris, can I have a word?" my boss called out, snapping me out of my thoughts. "Yes, what is it?" "I hate to ask, but could you stay for an extra hour tonight? I'm struggling to get everything done." As soon as I heard those words, my face fell. There was a time when I would have readily agreed, back when I was single and had no other obligations. But now, that's no longer possible. Because of Mom. "I'm sorry, I need to get home to make dinner for Mom." "Oh, right, you're taking care of your mom." Feeling guilty, I explained, and my boss looked just as apologetic. "I'm sorry." "It's okay, don't worry about it. I'll ask someone else." Even though my boss said it was fine. The guilt didn't go away. I glanced at my computer screen, seeing the unfinished work there. I really want to finish this today too, though. Looking at the clock, I saw it was already past the time. I could see colleagues who didn't have to work late getting ready to leave. With a sigh, I shut down my computer. "Chicken soup again?" "I'd like steak for a change." "Sorry. I'll make that tomorrow." Good grief, you're so thoughtless. Can't you figure out what your parent wants to eat? Hurrying home, I apologized to Mom for being late and started on dinner. "I'm hungry, hurry up." Apologizing again to demanding Mom as I cooked, I still received complaints about the menu. Then, Mom yelled, "This is terrible. Why can't you make anything decent?" I bit my lower lip. Mom had always favored Stanley and been harder on me. This became even more pronounced after Dad died. I guess Dad had been the one to keep Mom in check. With Dad gone, Mom took out her frustrations on me as she pleased. Mom said I resembled Grandma. Grandma and Mom had the typical mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict, always at odds. But that's no reason to take it out on me just because of a resemblance. It seemed like Mom was avenging herself on Grandma through me. The dinner I thought I'd made well didn't taste good at all because of Mom's complaints. "Mom, I have a job and no time. Maybe you should consider moving to a facility." I had suggested this countless times. But, "Are you trying to get rid of me? How could you treat your parent like a burden, you terrible daughter?" Mom would only get furious, making the conversation impossible. And I can't force her into a facility against her will. If she had dementia or was bedridden, it might be different. But Mom is still mentally sharp and only has issues with her legs, not needing full-time care. Plus, it would cost money. Selling this house Dad left us would help. But as long as Mom, the owner, refuses, nothing can be done. I'd like to discuss it with Stanley, but he's currently working abroad. We can communicate, but I don't want to burden him more than he already is. In the end, taking care of Mom falls to me. But as her daughter, I suppose that's just how it is. I've gotten pretty used to just letting Mom's nagging and whims go in one ear and out the other. But that's only when it's just Mom. There's another problem. That problem is Regina. Stanley's on an overseas assignment that started last year and will last 3 years in total. Since they have young kids, his wife and their 2 children stayed in the States. Regina, Stanley's wife, is a lot like Mom. Even though Stanley is abroad, and she could go to her own family's place, she often comes over to our house. And when she comes, she has a great time chatting and having tea with Mom. In the meantime, I get stuck taking care of her 2 young children. Not that I mind taking care of kids. Stanley's kids are cute and I enjoy playing with them. The problem is Regina herself. Every weekend she comes over. Paris, at least prepare some snacks. I'm hungry, so give me money to go eat. If we can't eat out, hurry up and make something because the kids are hungry. Oh, and I want some wine too. If you don't have any, go buy some. I'm too busy taking care of the kids. I'm exhausted from taking care of the kids. I'll be staying over tonight, so get the guest room ready. I don't have pajamas, can you buy some for me? Well, that's how it goes. So, not only am I at Mom's beck and call, but also Regina's. While I'm running around busy, Mom and Regina are cracking open cans of beer in the middle of the day. Of course, it's the beer I bought, and they also have me prepare snacks. Plus, Mom makes me cook homemade meals for them. No matter how tired I am, the demands from those two never stop. And when I think I've got a moment's rest, my nephews come over asking to play. I don't get any rest, weekdays or weekends. In my 40s, my energy is dwindling, and lately, I just can't seem to recover from fatigue. Regina, please help a little. I try asking, but she says, "Why do I have to do it? Are you trying to make me look bad?" Paris, you're such a mean sister-in-law. And who are you to talk, you mooching 40-something? She adds, I'm not dependent on anyone, but apparently, Mom's been telling Regina, it's thanks to me she can live. If I stay silent, thinking it's too much trouble to correct her. You should hurry up and get married or something. Otherwise, you'll be left behind by society, just like a weed on the roadside, no, like a discarded can. She says, looking down on me. Look at me, I'm married with 2 kids and a perfect housewife. Jealous, right? She says with a smug face. At that point, I just focus on staying silent because arguing back seems pointless. But sometimes it really gets to me. And not just marriage, if you don't hurry, you won't be able to have kids. A woman should have at least 1 or 2 kids. When she said that, I silently slammed the casserole down on the table in front of her. Then, glaring at her. Oh, that's right, Paris can't have kids. She said with a fake innocent smile, as if she had just remembered. I want to say something back, but then Mom chimes in with, seriously, not being able to have kids means you're basically done as a woman. Even my own mother says such cruel things to me, so it's no wonder Regina feels emboldened. Mom and Regina, being similar in many ways, would often get along and become lively. Thinking it was pointless to say anything to such people, I eventually returned to keeping my nephew company without saying a word. Regina didn't just come home when she wanted to relax. She also came when she wanted to host events by inviting her part-time job colleagues from her condominium. One holiday morning, she was being noisy as she prepared for a barbecue in our backyard. People from her work were arriving one after another, not just women with their children who also worked part-time. But it seemed she had invited full-time employees as well, bringing a large crowd. As expected, Regina started directing me to do things. Like do this, do that. Paris, we're out of bread. Paris, the meat is gone, go buy some more. We're out of booze, go get some. We're out of paper plates, can't you be more thoughtful? Her initially polite tone became increasingly rough, perhaps due to the alcohol. Unable to argue back in front of guests, I had no choice but to comply with her demands. Some people did offer to help, but it's fine, just let Paris handle it. Regina would stop them. Amidst the dizzying busyness, a man approached me and asked, "Are you okay?" Looking up, I saw a middle-aged man who was one of the employees. Probably had children of his own around my age, I thought. Sorry for barging in with so many people. We should be helping more, but we don't know the boundaries in someone else's home. Surprisingly, he seemed like a good person, unlike what I'd expect from Regina's acquaintance. I'm fine. I managed to smile back, but he looked apologetic. Sure, it was tough and Regina made me mad, but as long as everyone was having fun, that was the most important thing. At the end, when I heard Regina saying, "Come again soon," I felt a chill run down my spine. Days of being tossed around by Mom and Regina continued, until one day. Childless and single is no good. You don't understand people's feelings at all. Mom suddenly blurted out, wondering wide-eyed at what's going on. You don't understand people's feelings. She pointed at me accusingly. What? What's wrong, Mom? I'm not living with you to take care of you. What are you talking about, Mom? What's gotten into you all of a sudden? Don't act all high and mighty when you can't even do proper housework. What on earth was this about? She had said many unreasonable things before, but never so suddenly, and I couldn't keep up. With question marks floating in my head, Mom said, "If you can't do anything, at least contribute money to the household." But I am already covering some of the food expenses. Give me money I can spend freely. That's ridiculous. I was doing what I could, but recently I'd reduced my work hours and left early more often due to Mom's complaints. My income had decreased, and now she was demanding pocket money from me? No way. But you have your pension and Dad's inheritance. Shut up. Just give it to me. It was like being extorted by a delinquent. I resolutely refused, but later I was shocked to find that money was being taken from my account. I can't believe it. Even between parent and child, there are lines that shouldn't be crossed. I've reached my limit. I need to discuss this thoroughly with Stanley. Just as I was thinking that with my head in my hands, another sudden declaration was made. Paris, you're moving out of this house. What? Why all of a sudden? It's not sudden, I've told you before. Stop mooching off us. Mooching? What more do you want from me? You're useless if you refuse to contribute to the household. If you don't want to give money, then get out. Are you serious, Mom? I am serious. Mom's eyes were serious. I wondered what had gotten into her, and then someone popped their head in and asked, "Are you done talking?" Regina? It was Stanley's wife. It was unusual for her to come over on a weeknight, but she said she came because her 2 kids were at a friend's house for a sleepover. Paris, I've decided to move into this house. She made this abrupt announcement. What? What do you mean? Can't you understand? Typical moocher with low comprehension. What's with that? Listen, your brother, well, my husband, will not be back for another 2 years. During that time, raising kids alone is tough, so I decided to move in here. What about your parents' house, Regina? My older brother and his family already live there, so it's not possible. But does Stanley agree with this? I don't need my husband's opinion. I decided to move in here. This was agreed upon by Scarlett too. But in that case, only Stanley's room is free. How can 3 people fit in there? What are you talking about? Paris, you're moving out, so there's no problem. Wait, I am supposed to leave? Exactly. Didn't I tell you before? You who neither marries nor has kids is like a weed or an empty can on the roadside. In other words, trash. A useless moocher is to be thrown in the garbage. This is absurd. What kind of nonsense is this? I was dumbfounded and couldn't close my mouth. So, please leave, Regina said with a sweet smile. But if I leave, will Mom be okay? Of course, you will take care of her. What? naturally. If you don't want that, then send lots of money. You've been a moocher all this time, so you can at least do that, can't you? No, there's no way I can do that. I don't deserve to be called a moocher in the first place. But Mom seemed delighted to live with Regina and her adorable grandchildren. Regina seemed thrilled to move from a cramped condo to a spacious house. This is hopeless. But then I thought, wait a minute. This might not be a bad idea. I had lived alone before. I earn enough to do that again. Besides, if I move out, I won't have to spend time caring for Mom. Mom has been getting a lot healthier lately, going to the grocery store and managing house chores by herself. Wouldn't it be better if Regina were here? As for sending money, well, I'll think about it later. I see only benefits in this. But will the two of them realize the drawbacks if I move out? They probably don't, judging by their carefree smiles. They likely think that if I move out, they can live happily together. They assume I'll do the housework by commuting and take care of Mom. They think I will send money, so they won't have financial issues. As if that would work. But I decided to keep quiet for now. First, I need to get out of this situation. I silently watched the two of them. The next day, I hurriedly began preparations for moving out. To keep them distracted and thinking they could still benefit, I gave them some spending money. Then I sent Mom, Regina, and my nephews on a trip, covering the expenses myself. It was quite a cost, but I considered it a necessary investment for the future. While everyone was away, I finished moving. Upon arriving at my new home, I felt a sense of relief wash over me as I began unpacking. Just as I started to relax, the phone rang. It was Mom. As soon as I picked up, she yelled, "Where are you?" in a high-pitched voice. I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. I'm at the new place. The new place? Where is that? Why did you move out without telling me? Well, you were the one who told me to leave. Yeah, but still. Fine, if you're out, it's a relief. Now I can have Regina and her family move in. And you better start sending money. Despite paying for her trip, she's already asking for money. Mom only thinks about using me. She hung up abruptly after demanding money. Sudden silence filled the room. I stared blankly for a while. Enough is enough. All right, time to start fresh and live a new life. Living with Mom meant enduring endless days of sacrifice. I had to give up hobbies, free time, and even work hours to cater to Mom and Regina's whims. Finally, I am free. I should try something new, shouldn't I? I mused aloud. But nothing came to mind. I've never really had hobbies, being a workaholic. Then, a thought struck me. All right, let's sign up for a dating app. It wasn't because of anything Mom or Regina said. But after resuming my solo life, I felt a pang of loneliness. I had the time, so why not explore new connections? Once decided, it's best to act quickly. I immediately began researching various websites to find a potential partner. A few days later, after registering on several sites and even talking to an advisor, I found an interesting event on one of the websites. It was a bus tour for finding a marriage partner. Travel tends to bring out people's true selves, or so I've heard. Formal meetings with hello, and small talk are fine, but travel seemed like a more relaxed way to meet someone. Even if I didn't meet anyone special, I could still enjoy the. So, the bus tour began. After introductions, we arrived at our destination, and it was free time. I thought they could have organized a bit more, but groups started forming slowly. Some were already pairing off. The participants were around my age, actively engaging with one another, which was impressive. I decided to take it at my own pace when. Excuse me. Are you Paris? A voice startled me, making me straighten up. Yes, I'm Paris, I replied awkwardly. Meeting people in this setting felt entirely different from work. My voice even cracked. Turning around nervously, I saw a man with wide eyes and a somewhat dazed expression. He looked around my age, maybe older. Something about him seemed familiar. Oh no, embarrassing. Paris, it's me. Do you remember? Huh? It sounded like one of those icebreakers. Don't we know each other? But I did recognize him. Remember the barbecue at your place? Oh, right. I remembered. The middle-aged man who checked on me when many people from Regina's workplace came over. Yes, I forgot because I only met him once, but it's definitely him. When the man greeted me with "It's been a while," I also greeted him back with "It's been a while." Apparently, this man who would become Regina's boss was an unmarried man with no children or wife. Indeed, he wasn't wearing a wedding ring, but I thought many men don't wear them, so I didn't pay much attention to it. Oh, I also assumed that people of a certain age are married or have kids. Well, I guess it's natural for people to assume the same about me. As I chuckled to myself, the man spoke up, by the way. The man. Ian said, "How is Regina doing?" My sister? Oh, she's Stanley's wife, so she's my sister-in-law. You mean Regina, right? Yeah, probably. Probably? I moved out of my parents' house. Regina started living with them instead. Oh, really? Yeah, well. I couldn't say I was kicked out, so I smiled awkwardly to cover it up. I see. I didn't know she quit her part-time job. What? The sudden revelation made my mind go blank for a moment. She quit her part-time job? I hadn't heard anything about that. Yes. Maybe around the time of that barbecue. What? But she was supposed to be going to her part-time job as usual. This was the first time I heard Regina quit her job. Up until I moved out, she had always been coming over and lazing around, saying she was tired from her part-time job. Oh, then she must have found another part-time job. Maybe. Regina rarely talks about her work. But I think she would have mentioned if she quit or changed her job. But why did she quit? Oh, don't you know? She was dating one of our younger employees, and oh. What is that? I'm really curious, so please don't stop there. Dating a younger employee? Oh, well, I feel like it's inappropriate to say. Then I'll turn away, so please say it as if you're talking to yourself. Well, okay. Okay? I'm glad Ian isn't a stubborn person. I turned to the right, and Ian turned to the left. Then Ian said in a small voice, "She was found out to be dating one of our younger employees, which caused a problem, so she quit." What? It's just me talking to myself. When I reflexively asked in a loud voice, Ian hastily replied. There was no need for him to repeat it, I heard it clearly. I see, now I understand. Regina was having an affair. Affairs are expensive, and Stanley's allowance alone must have been getting tight. But she got fired from her part-time job, and if she started a new job, she wouldn't be able to meet her lover. So, what to do? Convince Mom to live together, and use Mom's money and my allowance to get by. That way, she wouldn't have to use Stanley's allowance for living expenses and could keep all of it for herself. I see. I couldn't help but mutter. Then there's only one thing I need to do. That night, I quickly made a phone call. A few days later, the phone rang again. This time it was Regina. Hello? As soon as I answered the phone. Paris, why aren't you sending the allowance? She shouted angrily. Regina shouted so loudly that I could hear her even after I took the phone away from my ear. You're not even helping with caregiving. I'm busy with my part-time job and raising my kids, going to the grocery store, cooking, and cleaning. You don't have a husband or kids, so you should come and help. No way. I hung up, but she called back within a second. Hello. If you can't come, at least send some money. No way. I hung up again. But she didn't give up and called back immediately, so this time I answered without saying anything. It was Mom. Paris, how can you abandon your own mother? You're the one who kicked me out. I told you to leave, but I didn't say you could abandon your responsibilities. Regina is there, isn't she? Regina has kids and a job. You don't have kids, so you should do it. But Regina lost her job and is hanging out with men. That's why she's busy, what? It took Mom a few seconds to process what I said, and then she asked again, a beat later. So I repeated it for her. Regina got close to a young male coworker at her part-time job and got fired. What? Is Regina there with you? Yes, but... Then tell her this. I glanced at the clock on the wall. Tell her what? Stanley is coming over soon, and she should think about what she'll do after the divorce. Divorce? Well, if you cheat on your husband, divorce is inevitable. Wah. Mom stammered while I could hear Regina in the background saying, What's wrong, Scarlett? Is Paris going to send money? But Mom couldn't say anything. Since she was silent, I hung up. I checked my messages on my smartphone. There was one from Stanley, I'm almost at the house. Thanks for telling me about Regina's affair. I'll discuss Mom's future with her too. Humming, I put down my smartphone. Not long after that, Stanley and Regina got divorced. Regina was entirely at fault. After I told Stanley about the affair, he quickly arranged a temporary return to the US from his job overseas. He hired a reputable private investigator and gathered solid evidence of the affair. Stanley got custody of the kids, of course. As for Regina, she disappeared. Stanley sought compensation in the divorce trial, but Regina had squandered affairs. Regina turned to her parents for help, but they were furious and disowned her. She vanished after that. Regina's parents paid the compensation to Stanley. They vowed to track her down and make her repay them. Regina thought she could enjoy her freedom while Stanley was away for work, but she chose the wrong kind of freedom. Mom, who was close to Regina, was in shock. It seems Regina had been sweet-talking Mom and getting money from her pension as an allowance. Regina had convinced Mom. Paris will send plenty of money. Well, it's Mom's fault for being fooled. Even though Mom aged rapidly due to stress, I have no intention of taking care of her. Mom used and neglected me, so I don't owe her anything anymore. Since Stanley agreed, we sold our childhood home to cover the costs of Mom's admission into a care facility. However, it wasn't enough, and when needed, Stanley and I decided to split the additional costs. Though feeling disheartened, Mom resisted, but when I told her it's okay to be abandoned, she reluctantly accepted. She will have to endure a lonely old age. It's all because you brought this on yourself. I took responsibility for Stanley's children for the time being. Stanley has been negotiating with his company and will be returning home soon. When he returns, Stanley will start living with his kids, and until then, I'm the temporary mom. Compared to taking care of our mom, this is easier, but it's still very challenging. I truly respect all the moms out there. Even though I can't have and raise my own children, I'm grateful to experience a bit of motherhood. My nephews can be annoying, but overall, they're very adorable. I felt the joy of parenting. The time when Stanley's return neared. Will you go out with me? Ian asked me out. We've actually met a few times since then. I realized we have a lot in common and I genuinely liked him, so I was honestly happy. But feeling anxious, I asked, I'm unable to have children. Does that matter to you? It doesn't matter. At my age, I don't think I could have kids either. It would be just the two of us, you know? Yes, I want it to be just the two of us. His words warmed my heart. Just the two of us? Yes, just the two of us, together forever. Forever? Please stay by my side forever. It was almost like a proposal. In that moment, tears started to fall. Crying and laughing at the same time, my answer was clear. You promised you wouldn't invade our bedroom. How many times do I have to say the same thing? My mother-in-law, Melissa, brazenly entered our sanctuary of a bedroom and took a nap there. This situation is beyond a joke. Poor Timothy's bed is now 100% soaked with Melissa's drool. No matter what I say, she just doesn't listen. Maybe it's time for some real consequences? Haha. My name is Kristen. I'm a 36-year-old who can't stop eating ice cream during the summer. The other day, I had my eye on the last ice cream from a big set we had. But my daughter wanted it, so I gave it to her. Oh well. I guess I can always buy more. I thought how once you become an adult you prioritize your children in every aspect, and reminisced my mother's kindness, remembering how my mom did so too. Yes. Moms typically sacrifice their needs for their children. I never thought a mother would put herself first over her kids. Until I met Timothy's mom. Why do you treat me like an outsider in my own family? Melissa said, covering her face and starting to cry. This was about 10 years ago. Timothy and I had just gotten married, and we were planning to buy a house after moving out of our apartment. Melissa heard about it and said, I want to live with you too. I didn't have a bad relationship with her, but it wasn't particularly good either. The reason was simple. I had just gotten married and hadn't spent much time with her. Therefore, I didn't know her well and didn't have any intention of getting too close too quickly. I hoped we could maintain a moderate distance. But when she started crying and demanding to live with us, it wasn't something I could easily ignore. I've been living alone for so long. It's been 10 years since I lost my husband. I thought when you got married, we'd become a family, and I'd finally have someone to live with. Don't you feel sorry for an elderly woman living all alone? Why are you buying a house assuming I'll live alone? Melissa pleaded with tears streaming down her face. However, I couldn't feel sorry for her. Neither Timothy nor I had ever said, we're considering living together. Or, we should live together. Not even once. We never intended to live with her at all. Yet in Melissa's mind, she thinks we'll propose living together. I can understand feeling lonely living alone, but when she so assertively says, living together is only natural, it makes me not want to do it at all. We're trying to get used to being a married couple. If you're here, we wouldn't be able to relax and enjoy our married life. Please, just step back. Timothy said with a heavy sigh. I completely agreed with him on this matter. After all, we just got married, and we want our alone time. But then, you two lived together before you got married. You've already spent 6 months together, that's enough. Let me join you. I was stunned by Melissa's declaration. That's enough. After just 6 months. What kind of logic is that? If we did as Melissa said, she'd end up spending more time with us than we did as a couple. So, does that mean after 6 months with Melissa, it would be okay to kick her out, saying, "It's been 6 months, so that's enough"? Well, no, it wouldn't. Living together before marriage and after getting married are different. If you're lonely, why not live with Laura and her husband? They invited you to stay with them for Christmas, didn't they? Melissa's face soured. Why are you being so mean? As she replied to Timothy. With all due respect, her mannerisms felt overly cutesy for her age. I realized for the first time that she might be a type of person I find difficult to deal with. Laura's husband Brian hates me. That's why I don't want to live with him, Melissa said, looking away. No, Mom, it's obvious you're the one who dislikes Brian. He's been trying so hard to talk to you, but you don't even make an effort to continue the conversation. That's not true. But it was Brian who suggested living together. Stop saying nonsense and go to them if you're lonely. Ignoring the person who offered first and coming to us is just low. Timothy's reasonable argument left Melissa visibly deflated. I thought she had given up on living with us, but 2 weeks later, an incident occurred. Laura refused to live with me, so please let me live with you. What? Melissa showed up at our apartment without any prior notice, once again pushing for cohabitation. According to her, I told Laura and her husband that I wanted to seriously consider living together. To which Laura responded, "We don't want to live with you." But from what Timothy had heard, Laura and her husband had been open to Melissa living with them. Timothy found this suspicious as well. Should I ask Laura why? He said, reaching for his mobile phone. At that moment, "Stop! Don't do that!" Melissa frantically tried to snatch the phone from Timothy. Both Timothy and I instinctively felt that something felt off. What? Is there something you don't want us to hear? Timothy asked. Melissa didn't answer and just averted her gaze. It's pointless to ask, Timothy said, dialing Laura. Melissa watched the scene with a look of annoyance. Laura? Mom's here right now, yeah, about the living situation. Not wanting Melissa to overhear, Timothy moved to the adjacent room while on the phone, closing the door behind him. Melissa and I were left alone in the room, an awkward silence hanging in the air. Melissa, unable to hide her curiosity, bit her nails while staring at the door Timothy had gone through. After a while, Timothy emerged from the room and immediately blurted out, "What are you doing, Mom?" Melissa, expecting a scolding, looked visibly uneasy. As for me, I was left bewildered, watching the exchange between the two. "What happened?" I asked. "Mom was staying with Laura and her husband for a few days." "What?" But apparently, in just those few days, she said so much that it drove Brian nearly crazy. Melissa did? Yeah. She complained about how he eats, among other things, and it was so annoying that Laura kicked her out. Hearing this, I was at a loss for words. Of course, Laura would kick out Melissa if her husband was being treated that way. It was a sensible decision. However, Melissa protested. It wasn't complaining. Defending herself. I was just teaching him that making noise while eating isn't polite, she said. If that's true, then indeed. It might have sounded like nagging, but it was for his own good. But honestly, I never got the impression that Brian ate that way. However, rather than it being it isn't bothering at all. Situation, it might be a. For those who care, it matters. Situation. I think the theory that Melissa is complaining is more likely, but I can't say for sure without seeing the situation. Anyway, I can't live with Laura anymore. Now that I'm really alone, you two will live with me, right? Melissa said, staring at us intently. Timothy replied, No, I never said we'd live together once you were alone. Looking exasperated. You were the ones who told me to go to Laura's because she invited me first. Of course, I thought you'd stay with me when I'm alone. It's cruel to make me expect that. Melissa's voice rose, and tears welled up in her eyes. Oh, not this again, I thought, holding my head in my hands. Timothy, not wanting to argue. Just go home, it's too much. Trying to simply get rid of her. Melissa, however, got even angrier and dramatically said, I raised you, and this is how you treat me. Covering her face and starting to cry loudly. In the end, Timothy managed to send Melissa away that day. But from then on, Melissa started showing up at our house every day. Have you decided to live with me yet? She would ask. Even if we sent her away, she'd call or text, wearing us down emotionally. Knowing she'd be treated coldly by Timothy, she'd visit or call only when he wasn't home, and texted only me. Melissa's persistence caused me so much stress that I developed insomnia. Timothy suggested blocking her texts and calls. But with her knowing where we lived, it was futile. We had to move urgently, but we're still looking for a place for the two of us. With no way to completely reject Melissa, I was at a loss. Until finally, she showed up and wouldn't leave. At first, she'd leave when Timothy came home, but soon she started staying for dinner, then sleeping over, and eventually stopped going home altogether. Why did we allow it to go that far? If it hadn't happened to me, I would have said, just kick her out. You're so weak-willed. But in reality, it's extremely difficult to send someone away once they're in your home. Asking her to leave didn't work, and using force to remove an elderly person could cause injury. If she were a criminal, we could call the police, but you can't do that with your mother-in-law. Once she's in the house, it's over. Not letting her in would cause a scene and disturb the neighbors, so that's not an option. Timothy had managed to argue her out before, but Melissa became more determined and wouldn't budge. So our home was completely invaded by Melissa, and we ended up living with her against our will. Naturally, Melissa moved with us to our new house. I'm so happy to finally live with my son and his wife. She was thrilled. But for us, it felt more like an infestation than cohabitation. By this point, Timothy and I knew we couldn't send her away, so we reluctantly accepted living together. We figured we'd have to care for her as she got older, and that time just came sooner. It's incredibly frustrating, but it's a path we couldn't avoid forever. With that mindset, our new life together began. Hey! Since we're all here, let's sleep together. As she said that, Melissa entered our bedroom at 10 p.m. Timothy and I, who were just about to fall asleep, were startled and jumped up. Hey, please don't come in here. I raised my voice without thinking. Why? Do you have something to hide if I come into the room? No, it's not that. Then it's fine. Melissa said nonchalantly. She was carrying her own pillow and sheets. She was really planning to sleep in this room. Sleeping together is out of the question. At our previous house, we had no choice but to sleep with Mom in the middle. Can't you be a bit more considerate of a newlywed couple? Timothy yelled angrily. His sleepiness only made his anger more intense than usual. That's so unfair. Why do you two get to sleep in the same room while I'm all alone in mine? Be grateful you have a room at all. We never planned to live together in the first place. Timothy was right. We hadn't planned on living together, but since it was decided that Melissa would stay with us, we hastily gave her a room to separate her from us. That's so mean. How can you say such cold things to a family member you're living with? I will definitely sleep in this room. With that declaration, Melissa threw the sheets over her head and began lying down in the corner of the room. She really intended to sleep here. Ugh. Timothy sighed deeply, clearly annoyed. I'm so tired. Whatever. I'm going to sleep. Yeah, good night. Timothy had been working extra hard, taking on more work to afford our new house. He was exhausted and had no energy to deal with Melissa's antics. Though he had a lot to say, he clearly had no desire to engage and fell asleep. From then on, Melissa began sleeping in our room every night. Like Timothy, I wished she would be more considerate of us as a newlywed couple. This way, our dream of growing our family would never come true. Yes, our family had grown, but we wanted to add children, not an old woman. Timothy must have been fed up with this situation too. On the first weekend after we moved in, Timothy did some DIY work. He installed a lock on our bedroom door. I never thought I'd be drilling holes in a brand new house just a week after moving in. We should have put a lock on from the start. Watching Timothy's weary back as he installed the lock, I couldn't help but laugh a little to myself. That night, Melissa tried to come into our room again, but thanks to the lock, she couldn't get in. Outside the room, she yelled, "Let me in!" But we ignored her. However, reducing our interaction with her might have been a mistake. Melissa started entering our bedroom during the day as well. This room was not just a bedroom but also our shared space, where I kept my clothes and accessories. This necklace, my friend really admired it. Can I have it? Melissa proudly showed me the necklace Timothy had given me for our anniversary. Wah! It was in the drawer. Why are you wearing it without permission? Give it back. What's the big deal? It won't hurt to let me have it, right? Come on, give it to me. No way. Take it off now. Desperate to protect my keepsake, I sternly demanded. When I sharply reprimanded Melissa, she flinched a little. Humph, she said, pouting while taking off the necklace. Thanks to Timothy, we can lock the bedroom from the inside when sleeping, but it doesn't have an external lock. I can't believe she just walked in. Should we install an external lock too? When I discussed the matter with Timothy, he quickly agreed and installed the external lock. I thought this would finally bring peace of mind, but... Hey, don't you think I still look good in this? Melissa said, showing off my clothes to me. What? Deja vu? Didn't we have a similar exchange about the necklace the other day? I stood there in shock. The external lock was in place. I had the key, so how did she get her hands on my clothes? Melissa, that outfit, it's mine, isn't it? No, I just bought it. No, the frayed hem on that skirt matches mine exactly. But I bought it. This exchange felt childish. I was certain it was my outfit. To gather evidence, I headed to the bedroom to check if my clothes were still there. Sure enough, I didn't even need to check the specific outfit because the closet was a mess. My clothes had been rummaged through. And, of course, the outfit was missing. Melissa, I distinctly told you not to enter the bedroom. How did you even get in? I didn't go in. Whistling, she continued. I bought this outfit. It was obvious she had entered the bedroom. The question was how she had unlocked the door. Melissa never revealed her methods, so the truth remained a mystery. Despite the external lock, she kept finding ways to get in and similar incidents continued. She couldn't unlock the internal lock while we were asleep, but she managed to bypass the external lock even after we replaced it. It seemed that techniques for picking locks with wires were widespread online, and Melissa was using those methods. At her worst, she not only unlocked the bedroom door and entered, but also drooled while napping on Timothy's bed. It was incredibly frustrating. Melissa, could you please stop this? Huh? Stop what? Melissa, having just woken from her nap on Timothy's bed, looked at me smugly while stretching. Don't pretend you don't know. I've told you many times not to enter the bedroom. Timothy also scolded you, didn't he? So why do you keep doing the same thing? Is this some kind of harassment? I tried to stay calm, but the accumulated frustration made my voice rise. Seeing me like this, Melissa smirked nastily. What else would it be but harassment? What? Why involve Timothy? Please stop this. It's causing us trouble. Are you really the one to say that, Kristen? What? You took Timothy away from me, didn't you? Huh? I was dumbfounded. Took Timothy away from her? What was she talking about? I never wanted Timothy to get married. I wanted my sweet, sweet son to stay with me forever, but he hardly ever came home, and then he announced he was getting married. That's ridiculous. Then why didn't you oppose the marriage? If I did that, Timothy would hate me. He probably already does, but Melissa seemed oblivious. If your marriage falls apart, you'll get divorced eventually, right? That's why I've been doing everything I can to make sure you can't have kids. Apparently, Melissa was unable to let go of her son. It made sense why she always interrupted us when my husband and I were alone. You find me annoying, don't you? But I'll keep sticking around, keep coming into your room. Until you divorce. If you hate it, just get divorced. Melissa said with a sly smile. It was a grin that seemed confident in her victory. So infuriating. At that moment, I vowed to myself, I'll definitely outsmart Melissa. When Timothy heard about that day, stay out of the room. If you come in again, we're cutting ties. He yelled at Melissa. Melissa looked humbled by Timothy's anger and said, I won't do it again. But, knowing Melissa, she would definitely try to come into our bedroom to harass me. That would be the end for her. Ah! One day, as I came back from shopping, I heard Melissa's voice coming from our bedroom. Beep. An intense electronic sound echoed. Hearing that, I couldn't help but feel my lips curl into a smile. Got you. No! Stop it! Ah! There was a loud crash and clatter. Huh? I didn't think I set up anything that would make such a big noise, just as I was thinking that. Kristen! Turn it off! Run! Water! Ah! Hurry! I had no idea what she was saying. I stood there blankly when Melissa, who had fallen down the stairs in her panic, Get me outside now! Crawled towards me and screamed. At that moment, there was a loud boom from the bedroom, and the smell of something burning wafted through the air. Oh no? Something unexpected is happening. Realizing the danger, I decided to get Melissa out of there and fled outside. Call the police! Fire department! Melissa shouted. I had no idea what was going on. But it seemed our house was on fire. Through the bedroom window, I could see red flames flickering. As Melissa suggested, I called the fire department and police, and then something shocking came to light. Actually, that day, to scare Melissa, who kept sneaking into the room, I set up a trap that would trigger an alarm when the door was opened. On top of that, a toy snake would spring out. I even planned to record it and confront her later with, You came into the room, didn't you? But Melissa was terrified of snakes. She thought the toy was real, and in her panic, she grabbed a nearby deodorant spray and lit it with a lighter. According to her, I wanted to scare the snake. But it was midsummer, and the spray can was heated, causing it to explode. Come on, using spray and fire together, anyone would know that's a bad idea. Not only did the police laugh for overdoing it, but it's good you didn't involve the neighboring houses. As an adult, you should know how to handle fire. They scolded her harshly. It's not my fault. The room looked different, so I was surprised. I'm not to blame. Yes, it's all Kristen's fault. The fire is because of Kristen. Desperately trying to plead her innocence in front of the police and fire department, Melissa looked frantic. Everyone there couldn't help but sigh. She shows no remorse. Trap? I don't know what you're talking about. But I did tell you not to go into the bedroom, right? It was a blatant lie, but a necessary one. Melissa didn't seem to realize I was subtly changing the subject and looked pale at my remark. Timothy also said there wouldn't be a next time, but you went into the room, didn't you? Well, that's... And now you've even caused a fire in our new house. What are we supposed to do about this? As I was demanding an explanation, Timothy rushed over, just coming home from work. I heard a commotion and realized it was at our place. Timothy said. Melissa managed to set the house on fire. What? Melissa trembled as she listened to the exchange between Timothy and me. Mom, you've already caused us so much trouble, and now you've started a fire? It's not what you think. It was an accident. You snuck into our bedroom and accidentally set a deodorant spray on fire, didn't you? Melissa fell silent at my words. Timothy, exasperated. That's not an accident. That's negligence. Said. The police standing nearby nodded in agreement. What's going on here? You forced yourself into our lives, and now you've burned down the new house I worked so hard to buy? No, Timothy. Mom just wanted to be with you because she cares about you. You're causing nothing but trouble. Timothy's harsh rejection twisted Melissa's face in agony. You don't have to be so mean. Melissa sobbed. I'm the one who should be crying. Do you have any idea how many extra hours I worked to save up for this house? Please, be nicer to me, wah. Stop that disgusting crying. No matter how much you cry, I will never forgive you for this. I'm sorry. Apologies won't bring the house back. If you have the time to apologize, get a job and pay me back. Melissa, who intended to annoy me, had ended up causing the greatest annoyance to her beloved son. Melissa's sobs grew more genuine, contrasting her usual fake tears. But Timothy looked even closer to tears than Melissa did. No wonder, since he had been working tirelessly day and night. I can't take it anymore. I want my house back. Timothy said, crouching down with his head in his hands. I'm so sorry, Timothy, truly. I'll apologize for the rest of my life. I don't need your apologies. I don't even want to see your face. Just go away, Mom. With that, Timothy made a dismissive gesture towards Melissa. Timothy's heartless action made Melissa's tears flow even more. I'm sorry, I really didn't mean for this to happen. Please, forgive me, Timothy. Melissa pleaded, rubbing her forehead on the ground. Timothy didn't even look at her, and just stared at the burning house. Aren't you ashamed, Melissa? What? Melissa looked shocked at my words, clearly not understanding their full meaning. Everything Timothy said is right. We didn't want you to live with us, but you forced your way in. We had no choice but to accept it. Then you tried to ruin our marriage by bothering me constantly, ignoring our requests, and making a mess in our home. And now you've caused an incident serious enough to call the police. You're a complete bad luck charm for our home. And despite all this, you keep saying things like I didn't mean it or be nice to me, only thinking of yourself. Let me ask you again, aren't you ashamed? Melissa opened her mouth to respond. Well, but quickly fell silent. She couldn't find the words to defend herself. It seemed she was aware of her embarrassing behavior. How are you going to take responsibility for this fire? What? Responsibility? I couldn't possibly. No, you started the fire. We won't go easy on you just because you're family. That's unfair. Melissa, who was pale and shaken, didn't seem to grasp the gravity of Timothy's words. Well, only legally are we family, I mean. Timothy remarked. Melissa, shocked, looked between Timothy and me, not understanding. Oh, was that unclear? Let me be clear. From now on, don't involve us. We are cutting ties. What? Seeing Timothy's glare, she seemed to realize that it wasn't a joke. Melissa's face turned stony. I'll take responsibility. Please, don't say that. She pleaded, clinging to Timothy. Taking responsibility is a given. Cutting ties is part of it. I really don't want to deal with you anymore. No. I'll find a way to get the money. Please. Shut up. I'm tired of being dragged around by a troublesome parent. You've been controlling me since I was a kid. That's because I loved you, Timothy. If you love me, then love my wife too. No husband can stand by while his wife is being harassed. What you're doing to her is the same as doing it to me. Realizing the weight of her actions, Melissa released Timothy and slumped to the ground, her face ashen. I'm sorry. She mumbled repeatedly, almost incoherently. But Timothy only responded with, Be quiet. He didn't even look at her again, leaving Melissa there. After that incident, Timothy's thorough rebuke seemed to have had an impact, and Melissa surprisingly provided the moving expenses without much fuss. We could have repaired the house with fire insurance, but after having a family feud in public, we decided to move due to the prying eyes of the neighbors. Besides, Melissa knew the location of the house. To completely sever ties, we decided to move to another house without giving Melissa our new address. Melissa, who had sold her own house when she moved in with us, naturally lost her place to live when we gave up the burned new house. Seeking a place to stay, she apologized to Laura and her husband and asked to live with them. But hearing about the feud between us and Melissa, we're not dumb enough to let you move in after hearing all that, Laura said. Laura's refusal was expected, given her previous issues with Melissa. According to Laura, with nowhere else to go, Melissa started working at a live-in job at a hotel. But that hotel was on the verge of bankruptcy, and the working conditions were terrible. Due to constant understaffing, she was often called to work even during her sleep hours and had to help with preparations for the next day. Even though it was supposed to be shift work, she was worked like a beast of burden every day of the week. Most employees quit within 1 or 2 weeks, so the staff mainly consisted of people like Melissa who had nowhere else to go or those with issues. The human relations there were horrible, and even the meager salary she earned was often stolen by other employees. I heard that the owner is a grumpy-faced old man. I hope everything goes smoothly, ha ha ha. Meanwhile, Timothy and I found out I was pregnant the year we moved to the neighboring town. Now, we are blessed with 3 children. We have 2 girls and 1 boy. The girls are so energetic that our boy is often overshadowed by them. But he's very good at dealing with his sisters and is such a kind boy, I think he'll be very popular in the future. However, the girls have grown up to be quite tomboyish and sometimes come home after fighting with boys. They say they are avenging a friend who was bullied. They've become quite brave. Well, there's nothing wrong with girls being brave, so it's fine. Although, I do worry a bit about their future spouses. My son, one day you should introduce your sisters to the best and second best friends you have, just kidding. Timothy and I often say. It makes me sad to think that these kids will someday start families of their own. But we are also probably the ones looking forward to that day the most. We have to make sure not to become parents like Melissa who can't let go of their kids. I'm divorcing you because she's pregnant. My husband, Richard said, his cold eyes boring into me. Beside him stood his mistress, smirking with a nasty gleam in her eyes. Hurry up and get divorced, you barren old lady, she said with a full, gloating smile, to which I responded with a smile of my own. No way. I'm not getting divorced. What? Because, I said, showing them both something. My name is Sarah. I'm a 31-year-old part-time housewife. I've been married to my husband, Richard, for 6 years, but we still don't have children. We've been undergoing fertility treatments, but the results haven't been positive. Every month, when the results come back negative, I can't help but feel like life itself is a gift from above. Lately, my motivation for treatment has been waning. This is partly because our marriage has grown colder without children. I still want to try hard for a baby. Another failure? Isn't this just a waste of money? But Richard responds with, such reactions make it hard to keep up my spirit. I'm starting to think we should move on to in vitro fertilization. It's more likely to succeed, and more importantly, I wouldn't need to have intimate relations with Richard, who has become so cold. I need his cooperation, though, and it depends on my ability to convince him. Honestly, I'm not sure if I even want a child with the current him. But if we did have a child, maybe he would become the kind him he used to be. Maybe we could be a happy couple again. This slight hope is what keeps me going. However, timing is crucial. Lately, even when I tell Richard that it's the right time, give me a break. I've been working overtime and I'm exhausted. Even if we get the timing right, it'll just fail again. Stop wasting my time. He responds coldly. If timing isn't possible, maybe in vitro fertilization is the way to go. I ponder over the bank account statements. There are grants available, but it's not completely free. If I keep working, we might be able to afford it, but if it fails once, doing it a second or third time would be tough. I can't quit my job, but I'd like to be able to rest. It's all so difficult. I look up at the sky, lamenting the challenges of trying to conceive without his support. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, the worst happened. I'm going on a solo assignment. What? The sudden declaration left me momentarily speechless. A solo assignment? Why? I got the order. The branch lost a lot of staff suddenly, and they're short-handed. They can't send a rookie, and families with kids don't want to go, so it's my turn. We're childless, so it's easier for us. But we were planning to have a child. How many years have we been doing this? We've tried so long with no success. We can't have children, just accept it. That's not fair. It's not my fault. It's your problem. His words cut deep. Yes, Richard had gotten tested. The results showed he was fine. The problem lay with me. But that doesn't justify his harsh words. I've been doing my best, enduring injections and hospital visits every month. I've felt ill at times, but I kept working and trying. Trying doesn't mean anything if it doesn't work. His cruel words made me burst into tears. Women always think they can get their way by crying. Anyway, you have your job, so I'll go alone. So you're saying I can't come with you? Are you going to quit your job? I find myself at a loss for words. Quitting my job to follow him is one option. But I don't know if I'll be able to find a job that pays the same salary as my current full-time position in a new place. And if we need to continue fertility treatments there, it means starting all over again at a new clinic. Just thinking about it leaves me speechless. I'm going to start preparing from tomorrow. Richard takes one look at my silent face and retreats to his room. In the end, I decide not to go with him. Richard's solo assignment is confirmed, and after a while, he leaves home. After we start living apart, I begin visiting him on weekends. Richard lives in a company-provided corporate housing. When I get there, he doesn't particularly welcome me. Take care of this laundry. He hands me a week's worth of dirty clothes. Just washing and drying them takes up all my time. While the washing machine runs, I clean up the room, and before I know it, the day is over. Meanwhile, Richard just lounges around, playing with his phone. Even though I'm in a new place, we don't go out together at all. All right, I'll see you next week, housekeeper. That's how it goes. It's no wonder I feel a sense of emptiness in my heart. What are we even married for? A few months later, I receive a message from him during the week. You don't have to come every weekend. Once a month is enough, says. What? I am surprised, but it seems like work is keeping him busy. Does that mean my visits are a bother? The emptiness turns into sadness. We might really never have kids. I don't know when Richard's solo assignment will end. Even if he comes back, our relationship might be completely broken by then. I let out a deep sigh. One day, about a year after Richard's assignment began, I visit his place after a month-long interval. As soon as I step in, I sense something is off. You've cleaned up quite a bit. Well, living alone for a year teaches you how to do that. Richard responds, but I understand. This is a woman's intuition. Looking around the room, everything seems too neatly organized. There are more hangers than usual, despite nothing being hung up. A new cup in the bathroom that wasn't there before. A pristine white face towel. But most of all, the kitchen feels off. Despite never cooking, there are pots, pans, and all kinds of cooking utensils. Have you started cooking? I ask. Well, yeah, kind of. He gives a half-hearted reply. Then why don't you show me what you've made? I suggest. Why should I do something that tiring on my day off? He looks annoyed. Richard's behavior is too suspicious to ignore. Then let me make something. As I reach for the fridge. Don't open it. He slams it shut right in front of me. The sudden loud noise startles me. Just because we're married doesn't mean you can invade my privacy. Sorry. I apologize instinctively, but Richard's anger only grows, his face turning red. That's it, don't come here anymore. You just do unnecessary things, and honestly, you're annoying. What? Don't come back until I say you can. Wait, Richard! Get out! Richard pushed me out forcefully, even though it had only been an hour since I arrived. I stood there, stunned, in front of the coldly closed door. But, is that so? I didn't want to just walk away. Even if we couldn't have kids, I wanted to get back to being the loving couple we once were. So what should I do? It's too early to give up. I decided to try and win him back with his favorite things. Call it desperate if you want, but I am desperate. We once loved each other and promised to spend our lives together. I can't let it end like this. I opened my map app on my phone and visited a few local stores to buy Richard's favorite things. With those in hand, maybe this will cheer him up. I hummed as I headed back to the corporate housing. But as I approached Richard's apartment on the second floor, I saw someone at his door. It was a woman who looked to be in her 20s. I wondered if she was a resident or a relative, but then she stopped in front of his door. The next moment, Richard opened the door and looked out. What? I was shocked as I watched the two of them chat intimately before the woman went inside. And Richard followed her in, of course. What is going on? I couldn't waste time thinking about it. I had clearly caught him in the act of cheating. I could have barged in right then, but I was too stunned and ended up going home in a daze. For days, I couldn't focus at work and kept making mistakes. My mind was filled with the scene I had witnessed outside Richard's apartment. I found myself crying unexpectedly and left work early. Even at home, I couldn't do anything or think straight, and the tears wouldn't stop. This is too much, I thought as I headed to Richard's apartment. It was filled with Richard's belongings, left as they were. These two. They were so important. Does he not need them anymore? Was he planning on never coming back home? Was he serious about that woman? Quietly, I looked at the room. Don't ever look! Richard had forbidden me to enter. Blowing my nose, I started going through the unopened boxes. Maybe he had kept some of our mementos safe. If so, it might give me the strength to keep trying. Richard's room was full of boxes. I opened them one by one. What? And the words that came out of my mouth were, a few days later, Richard contacted me. I have something to tell you. Come over next weekend. Despite his rude message, I wasn't angry. Instead, I smiled wryly. That weekend, I went to Richard's apartment and understood immediately upon opening the door. There were women's shoes at the entrance. Inside, Richard and the woman were sitting together. It was the same woman I'd seen before. Hey! What's with the big bag? I thought you might need it. Richard was surprised by the large suitcase, as if I were going on an international trip. When I shrugged and answered, he just said, "Humph," disinterestedly. Let's cut to the chase. I'm divorcing you, Sarah. Why? I had expected it, but it was so blunt. Raising an eyebrow at my wry smile. She's pregnant, Richard said. Pregnant, huh? Well, congratulations. So, I'm divorcing you, who can't have children. I feel so relieved to finally be free from you, Richard said, and the woman beside him gave me. Get a divorce quickly, you infertile old lady. A nasty smile. I responded with a sly smile, exploding with youthful energy. No way. I'm not getting divorced. What? In a high-pitched tone, I said. No way. Richard and his mistress were shocked and wide-eyed. Why are you saying it so happily? Are you crazy because Richard is leaving you? Despite the mistress's rude comment, I kept my sly smile. Well, I think I'm probably the only person in the world who wants to stay married to this husband. What? Richard and the mistress tilted their heads in confusion, and I pulled something out of the big bag I brought. Look at this, a beautiful dress, I said, taking out a very flashy, bright red dress. It's so decorated with sequins and lace that it would be too flashy even for a wedding nowadays, dazzling and heavy. Seeing that, the mistress said. Huh? What's so great about that overly flashy, tacky dress? Just as she started to speak. Oh wow! Richard's scream echoed through the room. Sarah, where on earth did you get that? From your storage at home. You went through my stuff. Well, Richard, you've been away on your business trip for over a year. If you had something important in there, I thought I should keep it properly or it might get moldy. But you didn't ask for my permission. Good thing I checked. This dress was fine, but some items had mold. What? More shocked by the mold than by me seeing his stuff, Richard shouted even louder. He was tearing up. Hey, Richard. At that moment, the mistress called out to Richard. She asked, looking confused. What's going on? Why is there such a dress in your room? And if what she said is true, there are several dresses. Why? Well, haha. I thought Nancy would look good in them. The mistress's name was Nancy. She squinted her eyes suspiciously. Huh? You know I hate overly flashy clothes. I've told you many times that I like calm colors and designs. Did you? Don't did you me. What the hell is this? Nancy said irritably, not understanding, so I decided to explain for the unresponsive Richard. Nancy, these are all Richard's personal belongings. I brought a few other dresses that were fine. Saying that, I took out more dresses from the big bag one after another. All of them were very flashy. Stop it, please. Richard was panicking, while Nancy looked fed up. What is this? Richard, your taste is awful. I would never wear this. Not even for our daughter. What? I don't care if you wear them, it's a waste. What? I cherish wearing these. They started arguing, and he slipped up. Not just an awe. What did you just say? Nancy asked, trembling. Nothing. He desperately tried to cover up. I understand you can't explain it well. So, I'll show clear evidence. Richard treasures these. He even dresses up and takes photos in them. What? Surprised, Nancy saw the secret photos of Richard the first showed. In them, Richard was wearing these dresses, with wigs and flashy makeup. This is an invasion of privacy. It's okay, you don't have to hide it. Everyone has secret hobbies, after all. I won't go around telling anyone about this. Not even your parents or siblings. But I think it's something you should tell your wife. When I said that, looking at Richard with a serious face, he fell silent, perhaps overwhelmed by my determination. I smiled. Because if you don't take proper care of such an important dress, it will get eaten by bugs or mold. I've already told you, some pieces have already been ruined. If you had told me, I wouldn't have looked at you strangely. And I could have helped you take care of the house and the dress. It's bad because you tried to hide it. Yes. Is that true? It is true. After all, we are husband and wife. When I said that with another smile, Richard stared at me in a daze. After a while, he seemed to understand everything, and his eyes gradually filled with tears. In the next moment, Sarah, you are the best wife ever. He cried and hugged me tightly. Okay, I get it, now let go, it's annoying. Would you leave such an understanding wife? No. I would never leave you, Sarah. It had more impact than I expected. I never thought that finding Richard's secret stash would have such a powerful effect. He probably couldn't tell anyone about his secret hobby until now. There are people who would look at him coldly, but saying that it's okay for women to dress up as men but not the other way around is strange. Recently, there's been more understanding for femboys, but societal prejudices are still hard to erase. It's a difficult issue, isn't it? But true hobbies are the ones you want to stick with, even if people look at you coldly. I get it, I really get it. Even in my 30s, I still follow the idol group I loved in high school. So, even though I thought it was a bit much, I patted Richard's crying head. "What the hell is this?" a voice shouted. When I looked, I saw Nancy with a red face. "What kind of hobby is that? I can't understand it at all. Throw it away right now, or I won't marry you," she said. "Did you hear that?" I said. "Just now, he said he wouldn't leave me." "I don't care. I'm pregnant with his child. Do you intend to leave our child without a dad? I think that would be unfortunate for the child." So I pulled Richard, who was still clinging to me and crying, away. He even had snot coming out, so for now, get away. Whether the child has a dad or not is not our concern. What? You should talk properly with the real dad of the child in your belly. What? Nancy exclaimed in shock at my words. Richard also stopped crying, looking surprised at me. "Sarah, what does this mean? You didn't notice anything, did you, Richard? This woman Nancy has a real partner. The child in her belly is that person's child." "What?" Richard was completely surprised. I rummaged through the bag with the dresses and took out a large envelope. "I found out you were cheating, so I asked the proper authorities to investigate just in case." "When did you?" "We don't live together, so I had plenty of time to act." "What are you talking about?" I said, pulling out the investigation results from the envelope. "It's been confirmed that you two are superior and subordinate in the same company. Also, it's been confirmed that Nancy has had a relationship with her former superior." "What?" In utter disbelief, Richard looked at Nancy. Her face was pale. "A sudden shortage of personnel, so you were sent alone?" "Well, to be precise, due to inappropriate conduct within the company, the former superior was transferred to a rural area." "What the hell?" "The company probably didn't want it to go public. They only transferred the married ex-boss and kept single Nancy. It's ridiculous." "Nancy, is that true?" "By the way, they're still seeing each other. The ex-boss hasn't divorced his wife, but since she's been cold to him, he's been meeting Nancy even more often. Even though they're in a long-distance relationship, they seem pretty close." "What?" Richard was too shocked to say anything more. "But even so, the ex-boss claims he loves his wife and won't divorce her. His wife is also stubbornly refusing to divorce. So Nancy can't take him away. That's why you were chosen, Richard." "Me? Richard, you fell for her temptation so easily, didn't you?" Ugh. His lack of rebuttal was answer enough for my question. "Our relationship was cold, but that doesn't excuse your behavior." "I'm sorry." Ignoring the slumped Richard, I turned to Nancy. "Do you have any rebuttal or explanation?" Her silence spoke volumes. "You can claim it's Richard's child all you want, but the timing and frequency of your meetings don't add up. Besides, a paternity test will quickly reveal the truth." With a smug smile, I said. Nancy stood up abruptly. "I don't want a man who gives me those looks just because I flirted a little." Leaving behind such a trite line, Nancy walked out. I can't believe this. I'm exhausted. What a waste of money. Looking at the scattered investigation results, I sighed. "Thank you, Sarah." At that moment, Richard spoke to me. He smiled gently at me. "Thank you for understanding my hobbies. Really, thank you." And then he continued. "Let's move forward together. I'll help more with having kids." "Oh, that's not necessary." "Huh?" Feeling a bit self-satisfied. "Look at me, saying something good." He seemed to think, but I was totally done with it. "What?" "No, we're going to work things out, right? You said we wouldn't divorce." I thought so too, but I can't stay married to someone who cheats just because we lived apart for a short while. What? Sarah, are you kidding me? Ah, there's a real you. You get angry as soon as things don't go your way. Ugh. I don't mind your hobbies. If you'd been honest, I might have even supported you. But it's too late. Sarah? Wait a minute. I won't wait. I'm moving forward alone. Sign the divorce papers immediately, I said, throwing the divorce papers at Richard and leaving the room. Wait, please! His cries no longer reached me. After negotiating through lawyers, our divorce was finalized without issue. Even without the pregnancy, Richard's cheating was undeniable. As the at-fault party, he had to pay a substantial settlement. In a lump sum, of course. He kept saying until the end, "You're the only one who understands my hobbies. I'll never find someone as wonderful as you, Sarah." But I didn't care. As for Nancy, she was finally fired after multiple infidelities were discovered at work. The child she was carrying turned out to be the ex-boss's, leading to a big fight involving his wife. The ex-boss is likely to get divorced soon. But enraged that Nancy caused the breakup of his beloved marriage, he cut ties with her. With nowhere else to go, she showed up at Richard's place. However, he was demoted just like his former boss due to his disruption of company order. After paying a lump sum of alimony to me in the divorce case, he was completely broke, and with the demotion and pay cut, he became gaunt and weary. Living in a rundown apartment, Nancy left him. Apparently, she is now living uncomfortably with her parents, who are furious about her continuous infidelity. Oh, and I did sue Nancy for damages as well. It was a small amount, but it was a token act of revenge. Feeling satisfied after punishing Richard and Nancy, I moved out of my house and started living in a new apartment with a fresh mindset. Although it was an action born out of freedom, I don't want to think that not having children was a stroke of luck amid the misfortune. If we had had children, would our future have been different? But life does not have ifs. Learning from my failures and applying them to my future is what life is all about. Next time, even if it's just the two of us, I will be with someone I love and who loves me back. For that reason, I decided to work hard on both my job and personal life, focusing on improving myself.